Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. The main focus of my display will be on UK post offices, but my talk will also touch on a few other related topics, including post boxes and the infamous Horizon system. As you all know, I collect things that other people probably throw away into the waste paper basket, such as Horizon labels, meter franks, postmarks, and postal mechanisation markings. I've got quite a lot to get through in 30 minutes or so, and I shall be proceeding at some pace. If you would like me to revisit anything, or if you have any questions, please could you make a note of the slide number at the bottom right hand of the screen, and I'll address these at the end of my talk. Thanks. My display is divided into 4 sections, starting with a brief history of our post. I've even included a few philatelic items on a few slides, so you'll be pleased about that. So here we go. I hope you find it interesting. Let's start with the history lesson. It all began in 1635, and you can see on the screen the key dates associated with our post. These are not all post offices, these dates, but they do have some sort of connection. I'll also be covering a few other interesting items over this period as well. Okay. Now, according to Royal Mail, it all started in 1635 because they issued a set of stamps in 1985 to commemorate the 350th anniversary. What happened in 1635 was that the Royal Post were granted permission for private correspondence to use them in the reign of King Charles V. The first post office was in London 8 years later. But what I really find a bit difficult to understand is why the post office should issue a set of stamps to commemorate the 350th anniversary when none of these 4 stamps actually feature a post office. So that's a bit strange. 25 years later, the GPO was established. It's difficult to find any early artist impressions or paintings or whatever of events around that time. But here's one that I have come across. I just love the top hats in the painting. In 1784, there was the first mail coach, and it ran 120 miles from London to Bristol. And the event, the 200-year event, was commemorated on this 16p stamp in 1984. Below that is a painting, Royal Mail in Snow, which appeared on a Christmas card sent out by the National Postal Museum to members of the Friends. And I think that's rather nice. The first travelling post office came in 1838, and again, I like the bowler hats in this photo. I'll be touching on the TPO later in the presentation. The uniform penny post, although the penny black came out in May, you may not realise that or remember that the uniform penny post actually started earlier than that, on the 10th of January 1840. And there's the regulations associated with it. There were 2 stamps since the penny black that actually featured the penny black, and these are shown here. But the key thing here is Sir Rowland Hill actually triggered the first post office pillar box by Anthony Trollope. And there we have it, or one that looked like it. The first one appeared in Jersey in November 1852, but that is no longer in existence, in use. However, the one similar to it in Guernsey was installed in 1853, February 1853, and it's shown there. There's, I don't know if you remember, you probably never saw it, but there was a postmark slogan commemorating Anthony Trollope in 2015, and there's insert of it there. This one's quite interesting. It's a postcard that was issued by the National Postal Museum in '93, and it's a facsimile of the Mulready envelope that was sent as a Christmas card by the London GPO staff to their colleagues in Portsmouth in 1884. And I think that's rather nice. I don't know how many of these exist or what they're worth, or whether this is the only one in existence in the National Postal Museum, but it's quite interesting. Other postcards exist that were issued in the 1990s, showing the different costumes that postmen wore between 1793 and 1862. This one here looks a bit like a gendarme, but they're quite nice. The women during the First and Second World Wars had uniforms, post women. Here we see what I believe is called a shade cow's cap, and here one that looks a bit like a Girl Guides cap. Now this one really puzzles me. I haven't got the answer to this, and if anybody can enlighten me, I'll be very pleased to know. But you'll see on this, what they call an ambulance, GPO, and also on the same vehicle is St John's Ambulance Brigade. So there's obviously a connection, whether they shared the van or St John's Ambulance was actually part of the GPO at that time. I really don't know, and I cannot find out anything about it. So there you go. In 1965, the Post Office Tower opened. It was interesting because it was an official secret back in those days. And it wasn't until 1993 when Kate Hoey used parliamentary privilege to actually confirm the existence and identify its street address. It's been called many things over the years: Post Office, Post Office Tower, General Post Office Tower, the Museum Tower, etc. And it was declared a national monument in 2001, given Grade 2 status in 2003. You'll all remember the postal strike. There were very few post offices that actually remained open throughout the whole of the strike, and Cowplain was one of those. And here you can see first day cover of the decimal Machins on a cover from Cowplain. This is a rather busy slide, but I think it's a key one. A lot of people get confused between Royal Mail and Post Office, and this is an attempt to show what's actually happened since 1968, when we had the post office. Various arms of the post office sort of broke away in time. And in 1968, the National Gyro Bank broke away. But interestingly, the following year, it still featured under a set of stamps called Post Office Technology. Now, the reason why that is it takes a long time to actually redesign or add or a new stamp or change the stamp. Just very briefly as an aside, that is the process of how we issue a stamp. It can take up to 5 years to actually do anything about it. So the next branch is the Post Office Savings Bank, which includes Ernie, National Savings, etc. Then in 1981, BT broke away. But the main event was in 1986, when the Royal Mail Group was actually split into 3. Royal Mail Parcels, Royal Mail Letters, and Royal Mail Counters. Royal Mail Parcels became Parcel Force and then Parcel Worldwide in 1998. Now you'll all remember the disastrous consignia naming in 2001, which only lasted 15 months before it turned into Royal Mail. In 2000, there was an Act of Parliament called the Post Office Services Act, and that led to the Post Office becoming semi-independent in 2001. And the same thing happened in 2011, another Post Office Services Act that triggered full independence in 2012. And it's this area here that I'm going to be concentrating on tonight. On to the second section, the main body of my display. I'm going to cover the different types of post offices that are currently in existence. Now, to simplify things, I've divided the total number into small, medium, and large categories, as you can see in the pie chart here. The large category are what we call branch offices and main post offices. The medium category are what we call post office locals, and the small category are what we call hosted outreach and mobile post offices and many others. These are the services that are offered by large post offices, and you can read them there. Not all of them, not all of the large offices handle passport applications and national lottery, and some even have post and go facilities. And you will know these from the Wokingham post office. They look like that. There are currently about 700 post and go machines across the country in about 260 post offices. They produce what they call SSK labels, self-service kiosk labels, and that's an example there. Now, you will recall in 2019 that I went to a consultation about the closure of Wokingham Post Office. I knew at the time it was really going to be a farce, because there weren't any post offices that had been closed that were saved. And this graph shows how the decline is since the full independence. But it slowed last year because of coronavirus. They weren't able to hold these public meetings but currently 113 still exist. Now, the next type of post office in the main category are what we'll call CFPO, corporate franchise post offices. This is where the post offices have been franchised out to large companies such as WH Smith, Martin McColl, Co-op, Sainsbury's, and a company which you probably haven't heard about, ZCO. Now, you can occasionally see these identified in the SID hand stamps, this one having WF for WH Smith franchise. There's a photo of our new post office, and that SID there is one I obtained on the first day in June 2019. Now, you may be wondering why there's no post office, post box outside the new post office. And that's because it's not down to the post office to actually locate them. It's Royal Mail that actually decides where they're located, and they choose places that suit their pickup rather than any wishes by the public or the post office. Sorry. That's the meeting that I was talking about that took place in the Bradbury Centre. You'll remember me talking about it at one of our meetings. And this confirms that it was nothing more than a sham. On at least 4 occasions, there have been some parliamentary debates over over branch closures. They're quite interesting because they say they're nothing more than a sham. It's a commercial decision for us, not the public. This ZCO company has no good track record of running post offices. These are not my comments, but ones made in Parliament. And also, WH Smith has been awarded the Which Worst Retailer by Consumers Award. Main post offices. These are modern-looking branches that operate in retail establishments. They can sometimes be converted from a branch office, which used to be called Crown offices. And here's one in Finch Hampstead. And thanks to Mark, we've got a nice picture of the woolly hats that you will have seen around Wokingham. Similarly with the one in Crowthorne, that's had a woolly hat. But the one in Crowthorne is not a main office, it's called a town sub-office. A term now obsolete, but there are still quite a few around. And you sometimes see these identified in SID hand stamps, this one, TSO. Post office locals is the medium size category, and they started in 2008, originally known as Post Office Essentials. There are about 5,000 of these across the country, and they represent 43% of the total network. They operate in open all hours places, can be anywhere, literally anywhere. Can be in libraries, in dry cleaners, and even in hardware stores. And I think this is absolutely wonderful. It wins my award for the best named post office in the country. The Ronnie Barker Four Candles. No, it's wonderful. Locally, we have the Embrook Post Office in this category, Um, the services that aren't provided by these offices include collectibles, so you can't usually get any stamps ordered and delivered there. Passport and licenses they don't usually deal with, and document verification, etc. In the small category, about 1900, and there's 7 different types. They're listed there, and I'll take you through those. The first category is a real interest to me, mobile postal offices. And I'll give you a quick history lesson on this. They all started in 1936 with a van that looked a bit like that. And they went to major shows and then agricultural events and golf matches, etc. During they stopped in World War II, but mobile post offices in the form of kiosks were set up if a post office was bombed during enemy action. And there's an example of a hand stamp from 1941. They resumed as mobile post offices after the war, and they continued until 1974, when they stopped altogether. But today's mobile post office looks like that, and they started in 1996 in traditional post office red colour. Now, mobile post offices operate fairly sparsely across the country. The green areas show where they operate, and the red diamond shape are where these mobile post office vans are actually based. Just to expand that a bit so you can read it, we've got 2 in Northern Ireland, 1 near the Mourne Mountains, 10 in Scotland, and 11 in Wales, and the rest in England. Locally, we're quite fortunate. If you ever want to visit one, we've got one in Winnersh, and it's based in Chilwood Road and visits twice a week, Monday and Thursday between 9 and 10. That's what it looks like. That's a photo I took in 2018. The notice there is what they actually offer in way of services, and that can be shown, that's shown here on the right. It's actually an amazing contraption. It's got a built-in ramp for wheelchair users, and the guy here actually demonstrated for me personally. He had no customers at the time. He said, "Would you like to see how it operates?" And he pressed a few buttons and pulled a few levers, and down it came. Quite incredible. Some mobile post offices have timetable leaflets, which are rather nice to collect. But interestingly, there's no post office standard design, and they all differ. But these are 2 that exist associated with Evesham 1 and Evesham 2 mobiles. Sometimes these mobiles go to events, major events. One went to the Shrewsbury Flower Show in 2015, and occasionally they set up on a stand rather than actually use the vehicle. But they often have the special event post office branch hand stamps rather than any particular place. This was also the case in Europhilex in May 2015. Next category in the small group are what we call hosted outreach post offices. It's where a submaster visits another local hall or community centre to actually trade on certain days of the week. And in 2019, the Yateley Post Office set up an outreach service nearby in the Monteagle Community Centre. And I was, of course, their first customer on their first day. And there's a photo of me that the postmaster took. So that's quite nice. Similar to hosted outreach post offices are what we call partner outreach. This is again an obsolete type. There's still a few around, and they can be identified sometimes with post office partner in the hand stamp. The next category is home service post office, which is really no more than a virtual post office. Here, customers phone up and they take orders by phone, and they're actually brought round to people in remote districts by post office van, and they're dropped in at the home or in a nearby centre. And there are currently about 100 of these operating, nearest one being Wokingham Dean. The next category is serve and store. These operate again in remote places. It's slightly different. Here, the customer phones up the post office nearby, places an order, and then collects it whenever they feel like it. And there are about 20 of these around the country. Contingency post offices were set up as a trial at the beginning of last year. They're also known as pop-up post offices, and they're basically no more than a trolley. You can see an example here. They just wheel it in and out as they want. And they usually use those when a post office is closed and they haven't found a replacement. And those are two of the hand stamps that you can see on these contingency branches. Now, this is hot off the press, the Bank Hub Post Office. I'm sure you probably haven't heard about them. They've only been in existence for about 3 weeks. They started a trial at the beginning of the month. And there are 2 at the moment, but 9 are planned. And they're being established where local banks have actually closed, and they don't have any post offices either nearby. This one here is in Rochford, and I can see that Crowthorne might well go the same way because they have no banks left. So for us oldies, cash reliant old age people and small businesses find it difficult to actually deposit cash. They're setting these up, and I think these will turn out to be a big success. So look out for those. Right, quickly through a few statistics. About 11,600 post offices currently operating. About the same number open and close each week, so that is a fairly static number. In Cumbria, we got one mobile stop that actually only opens for 10 minutes per week. So don't oversleep if you live nearby. but up to 112 hours is the maximum that I've found. There's one in Kent that opens at 3:30 in the morning, and quite a few now stay open till midnight. 93% live within a mile of a post office, and 99% within 3 miles of a post office. Customer satisfaction depends on whether it's a modern style post office or traditional one. And currently 18 million customers a week visit post offices, but I'm not sure whether that includes revisits. And 2,276 branches now open on a Sunday. Right, on to miscellaneous items. We've got 7 post offices that you and I can't visit. They're parliamentary buildings and military establishments. They're listed there. Most of us only see the back of the horizon system, the black screen. But here's what it actually looks like if you're on the other side. And that's the default page that you get when you log on. The scandal, which you all know about, I won't read it all, but there it is, my recollection of what's actually happened to do with that scandal. Oh, I think these are lovely. In 1997, a set of 4 stamps were issued to commemorate 100 years of the National Federation of Sub Postmasters. This one here, the 20p one, unfortunately, it closed the year after in 1998, but they're lovely. And those are the other 2 for Wales and Northern Ireland. You can get post offices on postcards, of course. I don't collect these at the moment, but I'm thinking of actually doing so. Quite often, when post offices close, the owners of the new property call themselves the old post office, and I think this is a rather nice photo showing a plaque on the wall of a house near Boston. You can, of course, pick up, I like things you can get free of charge, leaflets from the post office, a few more. The travelling post office, which I mentioned earlier, I took these photos when I visited in 1994, and usually 3 or 4 times a year, the Didcot Railway Centre demonstrates the travelling post office in operation, and it was quite amazing, I'll tell you. As far as philatelic items are concerned, the night mail was commemorated in whenever it was 2014 with the British films, and in 2017 the night mail was also featured on this post and go stamp. The other 4 in that set were travelling post offices of these designs. They're rather nice. And the final one was the Post Office Railway in London. And that is now reopened to the public, I believe. I haven't visited there since the early 90s, but I hope to do so. There's the cover from 1977, commemorating the 50th anniversary. And you can see the train layout there. When I visited, it was still operational, and this was a live picture, as it were, photograph. But you can see the signs of aging in the control room. But it was quite fascinating. And whilst I was there, you can forget your penny blacks and £5 oranges. To me, this is just as valuable. It shows a bag label from the London Mail Rail. Number 3 indicates the 3rd station along from the east, the King Edward building. You're probably wondering how much I paid for it. Well, the answer is nothing. I got it free because I found it in a pile of rubbish swept up on the platform at the time. I really am pleased with that. Other related ephemera, you can buy this TPO mail van model, or you can collect post office magazines. Smokey the Cat was apparently an official member of staff living at PHQ in 1950. Then once a year, of course, we get the North Pole Post Office. It's a virtual post office so that children can write to Santa. Rather a money spinner, I'm afraid. But there we are. That's who they write to. Why this postcode? Anybody worked it out? It is actually Christmas HQ, in case you missed it. The other temporary post office that operates for a couple of weeks a year is this special pop-up post office in a village called Lover near Salisbury. But people like to use it for sending Valentine's cards, and note that the village has a special Cupid design on the postbox. Rather nice. That's it. Thank you all.